welcome to this week's show. Good to see you again. This week I want to talk about alien abductions, right? And I've spoken to a few people in the week who were abducted by aliens, and I've had the most interesting conversations. First guy, for example, this elderly guy called John, was out mowing his lawn one day when he was like zapped up into the air into the spaceship. And I said, well, what's your most, what's the first thing that comes back to mind from the whole trip, And he said, bacon and eggs. And I said, pardon? He said, bacon and eggs. And I said, what do you mean, bacon and eggs? He said, they took me up in the air there, and we just sat down and all had bacon and eggs. And then they brought me back down, and I finished mowing the lawn, I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, no, you mean no probes, and no, inseminating, and no strange experiments on you or anything? He said, no. He said they only had a few hours to fill in before they were going home, and they'd all been on the terps all night, and they were trying to think of something to do. They had something to do. So they decided to abduct someone and bring them up and just share some bacon and eggs with them. I thought, John, that's a fairly interesting story. And it's a bit different than the young chap I interviewed after John, who they stuck up, it was something like a probe in his ear. It wasn't a probe, it was like a probe. It was, in fact, a hot dog, because they'd run out of probes, and they had to get it on, it was like on a black and white video, for the boss, right, to see. And what they told this young fellow was that he wouldn't be able to tell whether it was a probe or not, and they didn't bring any probes, they left them at home. So, instead they were poking a hot dog in his ear, which I thought was a bit creepy, actually. But anyway, yeah. There was all sorts of stories if you look into it. There was this lady, Margaret, for example. She was abducted by aliens, and they took her up in the spacecraft, and she lay down to sleep, and she realised that she wasn't even in a spacecraft at all. She was at home, lying on the floor. I mean, that's a bit weird, isn't it? And I said to Margaret, Margaret, perhaps you were dreaming. She said, no, I was definitely lying on the floor. I said, yeah, I know, but where did you get this thing about, don't worry. So I left Margaret. And anyway, there was this other girl called Raylene, I think it was, yeah. And she had been abducted by, there was about 10 little guys, and they took her up there, and they actually took her to this other planet, she reckoned. And they took her down, and they had a game of mini-golf with her. And as they were bringing her back home, they said, well, we don't really call it mini-golf on our planet. She said, really? She said, yeah, we just call it golf. We only call it mini golf because we're only 2 foot high and you're so much taller. She said they just had a really strange sense of humour. But, yeah, so all sorts of things happen with aliens abducting people. And, I don't know, I've never been abducted by it. Yeah, so if you've been abducted by an alien, please let me know, because I'm kind of inquisitive now. It's kind of interesting. And thanks for watching my latest video. Subscribe, be great, rate it, and I'll see you next week. And have a Merry Christmas.